For all those who regularly turned into The Love Boat during its heyday, Phyllis Davis was undeniably the standout beauty among the show's parade of guest stars. Join us as Facts Verse presents She Was the Sexiest Guest Star on The Love Boat. It's not even close. Ultimate Love Boat Bombshell. When you think of The Love Boat, certain guest stars stick out, and few left as indelible an impression as Phyllis Davis. With her breathtaking looks, hourglass figure, and undeniable screen presence, Phyllis embodied the perfect blend of beauty and charisma. Before that, she had already turned heads in films like Russ Meyer's cult classic Beyond the Valley of the Dolls and The Choir Boys opposite Charles Durning. In the former, her role as a busty showgirl turned rock star showcased both her magnetic sensuality and surprising comedic chops. But it was her stint as the smart and savvy secretary Beatrice Travis on the hit detective show Vegas from 1978 to 81 that really put her on the map. Holding her own against smoldering co-star Robert Urich week after week, Phyllis showcased her versatility as both a talented actress and a bewitching beauty on Vegas. Whether trading barbed quips with Urich's private eye Dan Tana, or serving up doe-eyed looks that would melt even the coldest of cases, she stole practically every scene she was in. The Love Boat years. Of course, it was Phyllis's guest starring turns on The Love Boat in the late 70s that cemented her status as a bona fide sex symbol for the era. Her first appearance in Season 2's Another Time, Another Place, Doctor Who, Gopher's Engagement, instantly set pulses racing. Playing a sultry divorcee who mistakes a shy astronomer for a famous sex therapist, Phyllis oozed confidence and seduction in every scene. Those skin-tight outfits showcasing her hourglass curves and meaningful looks that signaled she knew exactly how irresistible she was said everything without her having to say a word. Not since Morgan Fairchild's earlier appearances had The Love Boat featured such an overtly smoldering sex kitten capable of reducing even the most accomplished men to blubbering fools with one glance. Phyllis went on to appear in two more classic episodes that season, the innuendo-laden The Last Play and the madcap The Zillionaire, serving up more of that irresistible mix of sexuality and comedic charm. Watching her playfully tease and flirt with her co-stars like a cat toying with a mouse, you couldn't take your eyes off of her. In the very convoluted, even by Love Boat standards, The Last Play, she played an award-winning actress caught up in a bizarre love rectangle, also involving Terry Kaiser, Robert Goulet, and the Harlem Globetrotters. In one risque scene after another, she left viewers both baffled and bewitched by her preternatural sultriness. Then in the mini-cult classic The Zillionaire, she played a secretary once again, this time caught up in a zany, mistaken identity plot alongside comedy legends Harvey Korman and Mel Tillis. Even in her brief return for one episode in Season 5, Phyllis managed to turn up the heat to sweltering levels once again. Decked out in a barely there gold lame outfit that would have made a slightly younger Raquel Welch blush, she danced and sizzled her way through the Zingaro Sisters in a turn that should have awarded her some kind of medal for smoldering superiority. Setting the standards. Throughout all of her Love Boat appearances, the same intoxicating recipe repeated itself. Phyllis strutting onto the screen in one eye-popping outfit after another, serving up silent movie star looks that inflamed the senses, yet always retaining a slightly self-aware, playful edge that suggested she was in on the joke. It was sexiness with a wink, raw seduction undercut by subtle humor and charm. The writers seemed to relish dreaming up new professions for Phyllis to embody, ensuring each of her episodes contained a new set of double entendres to devour. One week she was a world-famous romance novelist, the next a high-powered music exec, followed by femme fatale criminologist, and ending as a military psychologist counseling shell-shocked Marines. No matter how silly or outrageous the plot, Phyllis's mere presence lent an instant air of simmering sexuality to every frame. In some episodes, the ogling camera work seemed almost parody level, with directors unable to resist framing Phyllis's every curve and look from multiple angles. Blazing a trail. Indeed, for as much as The Love Boat has been derided by some critics as cheesy and a relic of its era, Tonally trapped between self-parody and actual romance, Phyllis Davis's appearances were blazing trails for future generations of starlets. Week after week, this alluring and fully realized woman got to call the shots, play by her own rules, and simply exude unbridled confidence and sexuality, with no shame or demureness. Sure, the laughably outdated writing for her characters often amounted to not much more than hot woman who turns all the men's heads, but Phyllis herself always transcended the material. Her spirit and essence, as a powerful, self-possessed femme fatale, shined through in spite of the era's regressive sexual politics. She was more than a pinup girl. She was a multi-talented actress, deftly towing the line between campy comedy and unbridled desirability. Which is why, more than just a cherished icon or object of lust from days past, Phyllis represents a key link in the continuing evolution of female empowerment on screen. For all the justifiably iconic blonde bombshells like Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, and others, there was always a fragility, a perceived need for protection at their core. They were to be desired, but also sheltered, protected from the harsh realities of the world. Not so with Phyllis and her sharper, more modern edge. She was a woman in full control of her power to arouse, content to call the shots and stoke desire rather than just be objectified for it. With the perfect mixture of potent sexuality and assured self-confidence, she incarnated a new template of female empowerment, one that still resonates to this day in an endless parade of unapologetically sensual take-charge performers. From Michelle Pfeiffer in her modern noir prime, to Sharon Stone's immortal Catherine Trammell, to the bevy of talented, outspoken, body-positive stars populating the screen currently. A self-aware siren. None of what we've discussed is to suggest Phyllis's supreme powers of seduction stemmed from some overly lofty intellectual posturing. Let's not overthink it. The core of her appeal as a sex symbol was within those smoldering physical assets, and the natural-born ability to wield them with aplomb. She had a self-possession and a glint of wry humor about her that only heightened her allure. She never seemed to be taking herself too seriously, almost winking at the camera as if to say, "Yes, I know fully well you can't resist me, and that's perfectly fine." In that way, despite the Love Boat's reputation as a largely tame, innocuous affair, at least in terms of the era, Phyllis's presence added a jolt of sensual, rebellious energy to the proceedings. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your thoughts on Phyllis Davis and her iconic guest appearances on the Love Boat? Let us know in the comments section below.